Welcome to the Hotelligence Podcast, your strategic vantage point on the changing landscape of hotel safety. Hosted by Jim Cords, a retired FBI DHS investigator, and Don Carr, a former frontline security owner-operator with years of first-hand incident response experience on hotel properties. Every episode brings you closer to understanding the full picture and what the future may hold. Let's begin.
Welcome to the Hotelligence Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 7.
On the last episode, we looked at ambiguity and why resolving it too early creates a record that can't be walked back.
And today, we're talking about a document that exists in almost every hotel.
Yep, written every shift.
And read by almost no one.
Until it matters.
The age-old shift note.
So there's a phrase most night auditors have written. Quiet night, no issues.
Yeah, that's accurate. Nothing felt wrong.
Yeah, and the shift passed without incident.
So they wrote what it felt like.
And handed it to the next shift. Well, 3 days later, for example, something surfaces from that night. Maybe a guest complaint or a question about what happened on the property between midnight and 6 a.m. And the first document anyone reaches for is that shift note. And it says, quiet night, no issues. Well, the person who wrote it wasn't wrong. They just didn't know they were writing a record. They thought they were just writing a summary. But those aren't the same thing. So let's talk about what the note actually establishes. So a summary describes what happened.
Right, and a record establishes what was known.
Most shift notes are written as summaries, though.
Right. Most shift notes function as records.
Yeah, and that gap between what the writer intended and what the document becomes doesn't show up in the document itself.
Well said. That quiet night, no issues, doesn't mean nothing happened. It means the person writing it didn't observe anything worth noting. But that distinction is invisible once the note exists. What survives is the phrase. And the phrase is now the hotel's account of that night. It's record of what was known, what crossed the threshold, what didn't. And that threshold is exactly what gets examined when pressure arrives. And the examination starts with that note, written at 2 a.m. and 3 minutes as a handoff.
Yeah, and that brings us to the handoff that became evidence. Shift notes were designed to transfer information, right?
Correct, from one team to the next.
But they were never designed to be legal documents.
But we have to remember, function doesn't care about design.
That's true, but they exist.
Yeah, they're time-stamped.
And they're signed.
And when something surfaces, that's what's produced.
Exactly. So the auditor writing that note isn't thinking about any of that. They're tired, their shift is ending, the notes is kind of a formality, right? But formalities have a way of becoming the most consequential documents in a file. Not because of what they say, but really because of what they don't say. And what this one doesn't say is everything that happened on the shift that didn't feel worth writing down. That absence is now a part of the record as well. So that brings us to what structure changes about the moment. Structure doesn't change what happened on the shift.
No, it changes what the person writing understands that they're producing.
Yeah, not more work.
A different relationship, rather, to the work.
The note doesn't get longer necessarily.
No, it just gets written differently. So when the writer understands that the note establishes what was observed, not what was felt, not what the night shift seemed like, that phrase changes. Not because they've been told to write more carefully, but because they understand what the document is. Specific observation is defensible in a way that atmosphere, if you will, never is. Quiet night, that's atmosphere. It doesn't tell anyone what was seen.
Well said. In closing, every hotel has those shift notes
That's right. They're written every night.
by staff who are ending on a long shift
Handing it off to the next team.
and not thinking about what the document then becomes.
And most of the time, it doesn't matter.
Right. Most of the time, that note just sits in a folder.
Nothing surfaces.
Nobody reads it.
But the night something does surface, the night the file gets pulled and someone reads it for the first time with a reason to read it carefully, that note, that's the hotel speaking.
Right. About what it knew
And about what it saw.
and what crossed that threshold.
And what the hotel says in that moment was decided at 2 a.m.
Yeah, by someone who thought they were just writing a handoff.
That's the record.
And that's always been the record. That's season 2, episode 7 of the Hotelligence podcast.
Next time, the front desk. The role that sees the most, owns the least, and carries more than most hotels realize. And remember, we're in this together.
And together, we make hospitality stronger.
The insider briefing goes out on Wednesday. Link is in the show notes.
Thank you for joining the Hotelligence podcast, where experience informs smarter, safer hotel operations and prepares you for what comes next. Stay informed, stay confident, and stay connected. As the conversation evolves, Jim Cords and Don Carr will highlight developments that help hotels strengthen their approach to safety and risk management. See you next episode.